Shipbuilding used to be a key industry here in the Maritimes. So it seems that this craft of shipbuilding, as well as the skills of other traditional industries, have really been disappearing. Though there's a few key people making sure that these skills and crafts are re-emerging. I'd like to introduce you to the CEO of the Avon Spirit Incorporated, Hugh MacNeil. How are you doing, Hugh?
Fine, Jennifer. Hello.
Now, Hugh, you're also the president of a new cooperative. Can you tell me a bit about it?
Yes, Avon Spirit Cooperative Limited, which is the first community economic development fund in Nova Scotia as well, designed to encourage local people to invest a little bit of money in local businesses.
And then can you explain about the two buildings here behind us?
Yes, the building, this one is the shipyard building of Avon Spirit Incorporated and the cooperative, and we have in there the first schooner of what we hope is going to be a long line of wooden vessels, Avon Spirit herself. And this building is the museum building of the Avon River Heritage Society, set up to remember the heritage of the area, the maritime heritage and the planters.
Well, I understand here in Avondale, Newport Landing, it used to be a really active shipbuilding industry.
Oh, it certainly was, and hundreds of people were employed. This was a big shipbuilding center. At least 165 large ships were built on this very site, here and across the ball field over there. There were two main shipyards, one called the Mosier and the other the Harvey.
Well, Hugh, I'm a prairie girl, and my nautical terminology isn't up to snuff. The only thing I think we might have in common here is that sawmills were a key part in both building and boat building.
Yes, finally a sawmill here. Before 1870, as far as we know, it was all done by hand using saw pits. But in 1870, a building that looked something like the center building of the museum was over here in the ball field, and that's the one we've copied as the main part of our museum.
Great. Well, I know that the Avon Spirit's inside. Can we take a look at it?
Yes, let's go this way.
Hugh, tell us about the Avon Spirit.
Avon Spirit is a reproduction within 10 feet of the last wooden cargo schooner built in Nova Scotia. She was called the FBG. She was built in Kingsport in 1929, and she carried coal for about 20 years on the Minas Basin and Avon River area, including delivering coal to places like Newport Landing, where we are.
Where we are here. Must have been quite a task having her built.
Oh, indeed. All the traditional skills have been brought into play. And she's been built by the Snyder Shipyard Limited of Dayspring, Lunenburg County, and the same shipwrights who rebuilt Blue Nose 2 and gave her new life are the ones that have built this ship.
These are experienced builders then.
They certainly are.
Now, Hugh, about the tools, I'm trying to make a comparison between boat building and skill and building buildings with these same tools. I notice you have some here.
Yes, indeed. We're Avon Spirit being built in the 1870s. This is a broadaxe, which was found in the ground on the land of the last master builder in this place. This is a broadaxe that would have been used to square the timbers once they've been cut down in the winter. When the sap was out of the trees, they were dragged here by oxen and horse, and then this, used between the legs of a skilled person, so they didn't cut their ankle off, would have been used to square off the timbers.
Now, that would have been the same for boat building and for building a home.
Absolutely. If they had been building a traditional barn, a pegged post and beam barn, that's what would have been used to square the timbers. This is a dubbing as, and this was the actual one used to dub, to fair the frames on Avon Spirit before the planks were put on. It's important the planks lie absolutely smooth and flat against the frames.
I see.
That's called a dubbing axe. To drill the holes, there were no power tools, of course, back then. They would use, this is a small one, augers like this. And then for putting the planks on, in the good old days, the planks might have been 5 and 6 inches thick. The frames were probably almost a foot thick. Once the hole was drilled, this hardwood tree nail, pronounced trundle, would have been put in, the ends squared off, and then a slot cut and a softwood plug put in, a wedge put in the end, so when it swelled in the water, it would keep the plank fixed against the frame.
And that's still what was used here?
No, we used galvanized spikes, 600 pounds of galvanized spikes.
Okay, so there's some
there are
change.
some things that, absolutely.
All right, some old and some new then, I guess.
Yes.
And what else have you got here, Hugh?
Well, to keep the ship watertight, you have to caulk in between the seams. The seams are shaped in a sort of V, and the first thing that was put in is this cotton caulking, and it requires great skill. This is a caulking iron. And it's not just a matter of laying it in straight. The cotton is doubled over on itself in a sort of bead. So first went cotton, then what's called oakum, which is basically old manila rope pulled apart and impregnated with tar so it won't rot.
Well, with caulking, that's something that's quite different today in buildings. We're using silicone and latex. You mean that was used for this boat?
Yep, we used absolutely the same things that were used in the past. It took weeks and weeks of caulking. It's a great skill using a caulking mallet and a caulking mallet and caulking iron. And you can just imagine how you get carpal tunnel in your arm if you didn't know how to use this thing, working for 10 hours a day.
Well, Hugh, how about with the builders? Did they have to learn any new skills about how the Spirit would have been built 100 years ago?
Fortunately not the ones from Dayspring, from Snyder Shipyard. This is hull number 208 for that firm. Therefore, they definitely have the skills. But one of the things we wanted to do was to try and transfer the skills to this area as well. And fortunately, there are now 3 skilled local carpenters who are learning the arts of the shipwright by working on the ship.
Well, Hugh, maybe we can make the connection between some of the details in the museum and some of the skills that we've seen here.
Certainly, let's do that. Please follow me.
All right. Hugh, what a lot of work getting the museum put together. This is a great building.
It certainly has been. It is a great building, yeah.
Now tell me, why, though, was it important to build the museum at the same time as a spirit? That's a big undertaking.
Because we really have a living museum where Avon Spirit's being built, and this is a museum to really portray the great heritage of this whole area.
This is an area really rich in boat building, isn't it?
It certainly is, boat building, and the fact there was a big Acadian area, before that the Mi'kmaq, and then the planters who came up to take over the lands from the Acadians, and a huge shipbuilding area.
I've been looking around at all the displays. You have everything here from the plans of the original to photographs of early boats. Did these help in building of this building and the Spirit?
Well, they did, yeah, especially for the building of this building. We have 3 photographs of what had been the Mosier Shipyard Steam Sawmill building. And this building, the center part of the museum, is more or less a replica of that, albeit in post and beam.
Well, so I was just looking at, you chose the timber frame, and I think we're seeing some of the details here that you were mentioning that would have been made with the tools.
Absolutely.
The electricity made a bit of a difference here.
Oh, sure. There were power tools, but timber frame, we chose that because we wanted a building that looked old in the 18th and 19th centuries, and we wanted something that fitted in with the vernacular of the area. It's built just like an old barn would have been built, basically.
But a timber frame structure is so difficult to erect. This isn't an easy job for one person.
No, it certainly isn't. It took several people all through the winter with the wind blasting down the river here. And where you're standing, this is called a bent, all these pieces, when they're put together on the ground, and then they were stood up. It was really kind of fun because we had a yoke of oxen out on the road and joined together blocks and tackles. And at the right moment, the oxen lumbered forward and this whole bent was stood up. I did it for fun more than anything else.
That must have been a fun process to watch.
Yes, it was, yeah.
Now, how about the design of the building itself? How did you come up with this layout?
Partly by copying the outside of the building, the old steam sawmill building, and for the 2 end bits, they are copies, and very good copies, we believe, of the post office and general store that was down here in the 1870s and 80s as well. And we were really our own designers and architects and had lots of discussions with the building inspectors to fit him with the federal building codes for a museum.
Hugh, what's the plan with the Avon Spirit?
Well, the whole idea of this is to build ships on a continuing basis, traditionally built wooden ships. And to do that, we'll have to eventually sell the first one, Avon Spirit, and realize profits for the investors, because she's all privately funded, and take, with their approval, a good chunk of the capital realized and put it back into the next ship.
Well, Hugh, it seems like a very successful venture, and I hope you're able to revive the wooden boat industry and have it be financially rewarding.
Well, thank you very much. We hope so, too. We're trying to do our little bit to preserve the traditional skills of the wooden shipwright.
Great. Thanks for having us here today.
Thank you very much. It's been fun.
LifeNet